like to call the committee hearing to order for the Jobs and Economic Development Finance Committee hearing for January 31st. And today we're going to hear some bonding proposals, but before we do this, I think it's appropriate, since we have some new people, to introduce them. We have no new members, but we have some new staff people. Grace, was it Doyle? Doyle? You want to stand up so everybody can see who you are? Thank you. And Ben Roloff. He must have snuck out when we weren't looking. Okay. Greg Oxley. He's a new researcher. And the bonding process for this committee is going to work this way. We are going to lay everything over for possible inclusion in Representative Howe's bonding committee. We will want to question every proposal because we're going to have to rank them. So, because I'm sure we're going to get 3 or 4 times more requests than we have money. We haven't got our target yet, either for the bonding bill or for our own individual committees. So you will have a full hearing. We will rank your projects in order, and I'll guarantee you today it'll pass. So with that, we'll start out with approval of minutes. What date are the minutes? For
Mr. Chair, I'll move those minutes.
Very well. For May 3rd and May 5th. The minutes have been moved. All in favor of that motion signify. Are there any corrections or additions? Hearing none. All in favor of that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those that disagree with it say not nay. No nays. Here. Okay, our first bill today is House File 1691. Representative Benson, he has to go to another committee, so we'll sneak him ahead. And Representative Murray will move House File 1691 for possible inclusion in the omnibus capital investment bill. Please start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Mike Benson, Rochester and Olmsted County and parts of Wabasha, including Stewartville. What we have before you today in House File 1691 is a request for bonding proceeds to both repair and expand the Stewartville Area Fire and Rescue Department and the Regional Emergency Operations Center. I brought with me today 3 officials from the area who will provide in greater detail some of the testimony needed to give you the information you need to pass this through if possible. I want to make some opening comments in that the bonding committee, both from the House and the Senate, did make visits to it. They saw the critical nature of the work that needs to be done in order to both repair and expand this facility. And I think the testimony of the individuals from the area will also provide just the fact that it's beyond the scope of just the city of Stewartville, although its title is such in the bill. It says Stewartville Fire Station, but in fact they take care of 2 cities and 5 other townships, and they work with the Stewartville school district as an emergency location for if something should happen in the school district. So from that, I will be open to questions after we have these folks identify themselves and provide testimony.
Very well. Please give your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jimmy John King, Mayor of Stewartville.
My name is Robert Donald Mathias. I am the City Clerk Treasurer for the City of Racine, and I'm also the Vice Chairman of the Stewartville School Board.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bill Schimmel, Jr., City Administrator for the City of Stewartville.
very well. Would you go ahead and proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Representative Benson has stated, we do serve 5 townships besides the city of Stewartville and the city of Racine with this regional operations center. We cover approximately about 187 miles And since we last talked to some of you when you were down there, we've had 2 of the townships have asked for more coverage, so we're expanding our area. We have worked very closely with the Stewartville School District as our location puts us in close proximity as the emergency support facility if something would happen at the school or something would come up. It's an incident command center and training facility for Olmsted County and the other area fire departments, many other areas down there coming to train at our facility. It's a supplemental emergency response facility and shelter command center for, we have I-90 is just outside our city limits. Highway 63 runs through it. If any major happening would happen there, we're there to support that, as well as we are the backup for the Rochester International Airport. We are hopeful for your consideration. We, as a city ourselves, we're prepared to match what we need to on this, trying to keep this in a scope that we can provide this service to our other townships and cities in a reasonable manner. We have a facility that part of it, the old beams are starting to delaminate. The roof itself and ceiling is starting to come down. We just need more room for our equipment because of the amount of equipment we've had to pick up over the years to cover this area. The way we have to park it and crawl it, we lose some response time getting in. So we're looking at a add-on of a bay for some of our larger equipment so we can do a drive-through so we don't have to be trying to move this one to get to that. We've already we're putting a street in, so we'll have a complete loop to get in and out of this facility. Some of the training areas need to be updated. We have some issues with OSHA on our ventilation and air quality because of the age of the facility. We need to do a lot of updating on that. And I guess with that, I'd like to let Mr. Mathias speak, if I could, for the city of Racine and the school.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a representative of the Stewartville School District, the school board fully supports this project. The Stewartville Fire Department has been a wonderful asset for our school district. We have 3 separate schools, elementary school, a central school, and then the high school also, that are all within reasonable proximity. The high school shares a property line, and if there were an event at our school, this is our pickup site. This is where our children would go. This is a safe zone. And it's one of those things, we plan for it, and we hope it never happens, but if it happens, we need to be prepared for it. As the clerk treasurer for the city of Racine, we're a very small town. Our current population is 442. As you know, and I'm sure you all hear regularly from small cities, our budgets are just very tight, and any assistance that the state would have to provide to help rebuild this facility would be a great asset to our taxpayers, because if we don't get assistance, obviously we need this facility. We would end up having to pass that along to our we're already going to have an increase, but this for the half that we put in, but if there isn't some other assistance, that increase would be a real burden on our small city. So I appreciate your consideration of this matter, and sincerely hope both for the Stewartville School Board and for the City Council of Racine that you give this a high priority for funding. Thank you.
When you mentioned Racine, it kind of made me think of Wisconsin. How close are you to Wisconsin?
To Wisconsin?
Mm-hmm.
We're a long ways from Wisconsin.
Are you? You aren't close to any bordering state, then?
Well, we're close to Iowa. We can smell Iowa.
How close are you?
We're about probably 30 miles from the Iowa border. We're 5 miles south of Stewartville.
Did you ever help in any way with any fires in Iowa?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
We'd let it burn. I shouldn't say that.
Thank you. I could. You'd be not only having a statewide presence or regional presence, you'd have an interstate presence then.
My wife's from Iowa. How's that?
I am too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a project that has actually been in the works for several years. Our fire department themselves started the project. They had needs that exceeded over $2.5 million, which our communities just can't afford. The council appointed a task force made up of representatives of all these 7 governmental jurisdictions and the 187-mile square territory to try to, because of the economic times, hone in on the basic needs, to make code corrections to the building, to try to reuse the building, which we have used for 20 to 30 years, for another 20 to 30 years, to stay on site, and then to help with these renovations, improvements to the building to continue to take on this project. That task force, made up of citizens, pared the project down to just under $1 million. And our actual construction costs are estimated right now at about $850. Then if there is some financing costs, we'll have to cover that. But because the Stewartville city is only an 8 square mile territory, and we're taking care of 187 square mile territory, thus you can see the need for a little bit of help, since it's a wider range of citizens, almost 10,000 that will be served in the immediate fire and rescue operation coverage. But then, since we serve as a backup to the city of Rochester, the airport up there, because we're right off the end of their runways, as the mayor pointed out, I-90, U.S. Highway 63, and State Highway 30 all come through Stewartville. We take care of those commuting and traffic needs if there should ever be an emergency there. So we're just trying to tell you at least the bigger scope of why it's a little bit bigger project than our citizens just in Stewartville can tackle. And so we're certainly appreciative for you all hearing us and reviewing this project, and hopeful consideration as the session goes on for this.
Okay. Any questions from the members? Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just want to know if you know, or if staff knows, like, what our history is of funding with bonding money, renovations of fire halls and police departments. Do we have a history of that, or does anyone ever keep track of that?
Criminal labs?
I'm just not.
I think we have a history. There has been some people that thought maybe we should have a special account in the bonding committee for fire halls and for things like jails, because there's really no place to go. You have a hard time very often saying this has a regional or statewide significance. However, the fire hall, and the reason I asked about Iowa, the fire hall in Blue Earth, Minnesota, my district, was half funded by a bonding proposal when Representative Dorman was chairman of the Capital Investment Committee. And I showed, and the governor very often asked me about statewide significance, and I very proudly told him it had interstate significance. And lo and behold, it was funded. And I think there have been fire halls that were funded before that, and I haven't kept track after that. So they have been. It has happened. Very often it's for population areas. Stewartville is, my old roommate lived in Stewartville, Queasley. He, I don't know. Queasley lived right by the airport, so I'm sure he would appreciate it. Not that that's going to make any difference to you. But I think there is another proposal this session for a fire hall, and we'll see how they fare when we make our priorities. I think there are many areas of the state that need help for things like this, and I think we'll certainly consider it very strongly. Any other questions? Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author of the bill, how many local taxing authorities or municipalities are involved in this? I mean, it sounds like you've got a big coalition of people. Or
7.
city?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Benson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. 2 cities, Racine and Stewartville, and 5 other townships.
Okay. Where's the, Mr. Chair?
Representative Mahoney.
Your local match, when you say local match, is that coming out of property taxes, a special taxing district, or what?
Go ahead and testify.
Thank you. Right now, it's proposed that just the city residents would have to come up with that. We're trying to talk to the other 5 entities if there'd be a shared situation, and so that's what we're working with them on. But right at the moment, we've had to prepare the match coming from the city residents.
Mr. Chair,
Mahoney.
raises another point. Would you have to come back, do you believe you'd have to come back here to get authorization to get the, I think it's a total of 7, the Racine and Stewartville and the 5 other counties? Would you have to come back here for a special law, or no? Okay. I have one other question.
Mahoney.
Of the 7 entities, did any of the 7 get any LGA payments over the last 10 years? And if so, how much has your LGA gone down in the last 10 years?
A couple $100,000.
Schimmel, is that correct? Yeah. Okay. 100,000?
May I answer 2 questions? The first question on the jurisdictions, they do help us out with the operational costs through a contract system. But this facility now, with the needs, is over and above that. Then to answer your second question, over the last 2 major cuts, it's been held back a couple $100,000.
Just for your municipality?
Just for Stewartville, yeah.
And Racine, or?
Racine has actually, we've survived because we're a city under 500, so the LGA cuts weren't as bad, but in comparison and percentage-wise, they would be bad because we only get, around 60,000 in LGA, so we lose 5,000. That's kind of a big deal to us, but to be honest, as if I wouldn't be, the LGA for us, because the small cities have been protected on LGA, ours hasn't been drastically reduced like some of your larger cities have.
And Mr. Chair,
Representative Mahoney.
I suspect the other 5 entities aren't here, so we probably can't get that number from them, but
I think townships, I don't know if they get LGA, but I know their budget isn't very high. They got just about enough to maintain the roads. 70,000 is usually pretty high for townships' total budget. Representative Dill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I thought I heard you say that you have fire protection agreements with the 5 townships. Had you considered putting into the fire protection agreements on their renewal, capital expense, and debt retirement as a part of that, so that the townships can help you with your local share rather than the 2 cities? And what have they said to that?
Go ahead.
Those discussions have just begun with some suggestions from the township residents. Why couldn't we do that? Basically, in the past, will we be able to do it in the future? So they've asked it as a question. The flip side of it is, with the contracts for operational costs, because of what was pointed out on their limited budgets, they've indicated to us they've had a tough time struggling just with the operational cost, not to take into account an over and above an amount to go for capital needs.
Representative Dill.
Well, I used to be the manager of a small city in northern Minnesota, and we protected 7 townships, and they struggled like we do, but we just basically told them, here's how it works. Our 261 people in our city aren't going to pay for a new fire hall when the valuation of the 7 townships is 10 times the amount of the city with 261 people in it, and you're either going to share it or you're not going to get a fire protection agreement.
Well, thank you. Great question. With that, we will move to lay House File 1691 over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bonding bill. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next, we have House File 1765. Representative Crawford. Representative Crawford, this sounds like it's economic development in the right committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please tell us about your bill.
Representative Roger Crawford. I represent Southern Pine and all of Knabec, part of Itasca County. House File 1765 before you would authorize the sale of bonds for $250,000 for a business incubator project at Pine Technical College located in Pine City. And it is truly a regional and statewide significance, because we have seen, of course, unemployment drop the last few months, which we're very happy about. Hasn't significantly affected Pine and Kanabec County. Pine County still has a unemployment rate of 8.8%, which is about 81st out of 87 counties. Kanabec County, which is also very much affected significantly by Pine County, has an unemployment rate of 10.6%, which would make it 86th out of 87 counties. So, and Pine County, of course, has very low per capita income. They're 83rd out of 87 counties, and the weekly wage rate in Pine County ranks 86th out of 87. So, yes, I do look at this as an economic development issue. And I've brought today Dr. Robert Musgrove, president of Pine Technical College, and he will explain more of the project.
Very well. Dr. Musgrove, will you give your name for the record, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Robert Musgrove, president of Pine Technical College in Pine City. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the committee today about this project, and I want to express our thanks to Representative Crawford for his hard work on this bill. This is a project that's been underway for a few years now in terms of getting the funds together from different sources to make it happen, and we're very close right now. Representative Crawford is exactly right. This is about job creation in east central Minnesota, which is an area that's more depressed, higher unemployment, as he's pointed out, than other parts of the state. You have in your packet provided for you a brief fact sheet on what business incubators are, what they do, and some of the higher level details about our project, along on the back page a breakdown of where the funding is coming from at this point. It's from several sources. The largest portion, over 60%, being from the Federal Economic Development Administration. The occasion that brings us back here to request this $250,000 is that back in the late fall, early winter, the Chicago office of the Federal EDA came up with an additional $300,000 to enhance the project, $300,000 which we need to match, hence the request before this body today. You can see the total project is in excess of $3.2 million. The key component of it that we are really talking about mostly is the business incubator portion that's new construction on the back of the building on property the college acquired back in 2005 that used to be a former service center for the local utility company. Our intent is to incubate, to grow young companies, put them on a footing where they'll be competitive and viable, and then send them out on the marketplace where they'll locate in Mora or Pine City or Hinckley and create high-wage manufacturing jobs in our region, and hopefully move the whole area forward in terms of income and education and viability. Again, appreciate the opportunity to speak before the group, and thanks to Representative Crawford for his work on this, and be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Any questions from the members, sir? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the author, maybe the testifier, but the fact sheet says there are 1,400 incubators in North America. Are there any in Minnesota?
Mr. Chair.
Doctor.
Representative Moline. There are several in Minnesota. The closest to us is in Duluth, operated by the University of Minnesota. There's another in Two Harbors, and there are several in southwest Minnesota. I think in terms of competition with us, more critically, there's one in Grantsburg, Wisconsin, which is just across the border and is currently full with high-wage jobs. And just as an added aside, Representative Moline, of those 1,400, about 20% are located on academic institution campuses. So there's a historical context for colleges creating jobs through this kind of mechanism in the rest of the country.
You got another question?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And what has the success rate been for the Minnesota incubators then? And you mentioned some competition. Can you talk a little bit about that and what it'll do to the other locations in Minnesota?
Mr. Chair.
Doctor.
Representative Moline. I have statistics on the overall national success rate, and it's in excess of 80%. which is substantially higher than the success rate of small business startups in general. Our facility is far enough away from Duluth and the other Minnesota incubators as to not be much competition. I think in terms of our posture in competing with western Wisconsin, we are in better shape because we're located on the I-35 corridor. Easy access into the Twin Cities market for shipping and engineering help and employees and such as that. So I expect that we'll be very competitive for our region in competition with Wisconsin, and not that competitive with the other incubators in the state. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
We have Representative Mahoney next, and then Representative Mulry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and President Musgrove?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Where is this project on the MnSCU list?
Mr. Chair, it is not on the MnSCU list. It's being brought to be included on the deed list, Representative Mahoney.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Representative Mahoney.
How many square feet does this incubator include?
Mr. Chair and Representative Mahoney, the incubator itself is 7,500 square feet. There's another 2,100 square feet of existing facility there that we'll remodel for offices, for conference room, classroom, for use by the incubator clients or used by some of our own Pine Tech personnel.
And then one more. This question didn't come up. Most of these questions are pretty boilerplate that I'll ask anybody that comes in front of the committee. But one that came up was when you were talking about the Grantsburg, Wisconsin, you implied that that's full up and has been for a long time, and they haven't moved people out. One of the principles behind an incubator is you start them, you put them in there for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then you kick them out. I can name any number of incubators around town and around the state that have some of the clients from their first day opening still there. So do you have kind of a ironclad rule as, okay, if you're still here a year and a day, you're toast, you're out of here, or are you going to figure out a way that sounds like a good project, it just needs a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and all of a sudden it's 3 years down the road? An incubator is 90 days, a year. What's your plan?
Doctor?
Mr. Chair, Representative Mahoney, our lease, boilerplate lease, which has been approved by MMB and MnSCU Legal Affairs, has a maximum tenancy of 3 years, at which point the client would have to exit and go out on the economy. Some incubators do violate that. In many cases, they lack the rent, and they don't like an empty facility. It's our intent not to get into that trap. It's our intent to incubate those companies for as long as they're needed, and then put them out on the general economy where they're on the tax rolls and operating on their own.
And just one comment, I've never liked the 3-year limit. That seems to be a rule of thumb, and I've always thought that's an awfully long rule of thumb. And if you're incubating something, it's supposed to move forward. But that's not your problem, that's somebody else's.
Representative Mulry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you go to MnSCU to try and get this on their list?
Mr. Chair, Representative, no, we have not, because it was essentially job creation primarily. The feeling was this was the logical route to take.
Mr. Chair,
Mulry.
I thought I'd seen ones in the past, and I thought they went through MnSCU bonding request.
Doctor?
Mr. Chair, not to my knowledge. MnSCU's list is developed many years in advance. Our project here, this project has always been intended to be job creation and to come this direction rather than be included on the MnSCU list.
Just one follow-up on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could the chair get somebody in research to look up what we've done in the past, whether these have been requested through MnSCU or how? Not right now.
I'm sure our researcher's writing it down as you speak. Seeing no other questions? Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the witness, I did come and visit, but The question I have is on your spreadsheet on the funding, $600,000 from 2010 HEAPR. My first question is, has this money been laying around since 2010 and not being used, fixing things and putting people to work?
Doctor?
Mr. Chair, Representative Howes, this was funding left over from a boiler project that we had in 2010 on the Pine Tech campus. The bids and the cost of that project we brought in well under budget. And we talked about at the time about using that $600,000 to rehabilitate the 2,100 square feet of existing facility that we have on that property, which is an older, late 70s era building and has some issues. The rest of it was added to this as the federal money became available. And we didn't want to start on that remodeling until we had the other part of the facility planned and locked in.
Representative House?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, you've got the federal money that's signed, sealed, and almost delivered, but that I'm correct, the $600,000 is left over since 2010.
Mr. Chair, Representative Howes, that's correct.
Okay. With that, we will lay over House File 1765 for possible inclusion in the capital investment bill. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now we have 4 more bills coming up. We have Representative Poppe's, Anzelc's, Clark's, Murdock's bill all to come yet, so we'll try to fit those in the remaining time. So ask questions in shorthand or something. With that, we will have Representative Murdock's bill.
When you have Hormel around, you can afford things.
Welcome to our committee. Representative Murdock, you want to describe your bill or introduce your guest?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to talk about House File 1804. With me is J.D. Burton, been working with me on the bonding bill and with the City of Wadena. Just real quickly, I know you're short of time here. June 17th, 2010, the EF4 tornado hit the west side of Wadena, taking out the high school, their pool, their community center, their ice arena, and it was ugly. It was just plain ugly there. And House File 1804 is a request for of bonding for $4.75 million to help the City of Wadena build a new community center, which would include a pool, basketball court, handball, and the ice arena is being rebuilt on its own, and of course the high school will be completed this spring. It's a process I see as making the City of Wadena whole again. If you ever have something like this in your district, it's horrifying. It's horrifying to see that kind of damage and see what and to see the faces of those people. But they've done a lot. They're recovering well. It's a $10 million project, so it's about half funded with insurance money and with fundraising they're going to do. It's pared down quite a bit from the original request, and like I said, I guess I'd look at this project as finishing the rebuilding of Wadena and making the city whole again. When I was there, I think I spent 14 straight days there working with them, and Governor Plenty was there twice and had a couple of press conferences. And what sticks in my mind is twice the governor stood in front of the cameras and said that Minnesotans don't walk away from other Minnesotans in a disaster. They come to the rescue. And that stuck in my mind and has stuck in my mind. And I think it's reaffirmed just with Governor Dayton's bonding bill. We're in that one too. So it's like I said, it's the final step to really make the city whole again. And I guess at this time, if you have any questions, I'd answer them.
Representative Mulry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And whoever wants to answer it, didn't this qualify for FEMA?
No, it did not.
Can you tell me why it didn't qualify for FEMA?
I don't really know why. I was really kind of ticked off at FEMA for what they came in and promised and then backed off on. I don't have a lot of faith in FEMA. JD, do you have a reason?
I know, Representative Murdock, I know that FEMA didn't do the private individual homes in Wadena, but I thought they did the infrastructure,
They
which
did some
this should have
infrastructure.
qualified for.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Representative Mulry, didn't mean to cut you off there. It's a matter of infrastructure, and I think I don't know if it goes to ownership of the thing. JD, can you answer that?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is J.D. Burton. I'm here on behalf of the City of Wadena. The Wadena officials, unfortunately, were unable to come down at the last minute, so I will do my best to try to answer the questions on their behalf. There is a small amount of the local match that is coming from FEMA. It's about $1 million that is going to the $4.5 million local match. I don't know the specific answer as to why that number is not larger or why that number would be a different size, but there is a portion of this is FEMA that is going into the project.
Mr. Chair, is this much bigger project than was demolished or something, or is that why FEMA's only paying a very tiny part?
Well, Mr. Chair, Representative Mulry, the pool was an outdoor pool. You can see it on the handout, I think, that you have, built in 1958. So the insurance on that was not as high. Part of the matching funds are insurance dollars, and some, from FEMA that I just found out about, and the rest is local fundraising. So, the pool was old and not a lot of value. So the insurance recovery was pretty low.
Mr. Chairman, just one other thing, a comment. Is this going to turn out to be a palace like a certain chair got for Lake Crystal?
There wasn't anything to replace there. Representative Poppe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe Mr. Burton can answer this. As I understood that all the buildings were insured that were demolished, and you can correct me if that's wrong, but they were all insured, and that money was attained by the city. I'm wondering how much disaster money you got from the state exactly. I can't remember the final figure.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, in 2010 there was $750,000 that was appropriated through the general fund for design and pre-design of the project. That money has been expended for that purpose. The remaining request is for the actual construction.
Okay, Representative Clark.
Yeah, I guess some of my questions have been answered about the insurance. The insurance apparently didn't cover the expanded pool. Is that correct? This pool is an expansion? It's bigger than the pool or different from the pool that was there before?
Mr. Chair and Representative Clark, yes, it's an indoor pool, and I believe it's going to be larger than what they had. It's going to be built for the so the high school can use it for swimming and competitions and I don't think many cities would build an outdoor pool again. It's got to be indoors in Minnesota, so it's a little larger, yes.
And, Mr. Chairman, do you have an idea about how many students or people will be utilizing the pool? And is it just primarily high school, or is it open to the public? Or?
Oh, it'll be open to the public. There's going to be some use by the high school also. It's pretty much like we have in Perham, in my hometown there. Perham, with the community center, the school leases space from the community center. And those agreements haven't been worked out yet, as far as I know. JD?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Clark, if I may add, it's a use of through the city of Wadena, but it's also a Wadena County, Otter Tail County, and pretty soon part Todd County facility as well. So it's not just a pure city facility that's being used. So the use is coming from beyond just the Wadena city itself.
And I'm wondering if you have an estimate of how many people will be using it.
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
It is.
Representative, I don't offhand, but I'd be happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Thank you.
Representative Paymar. No questions. Okay, with that, we'll lay over House File 1804 for possible inclusion in the omnibus bonding.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members.
And next, we have...
Kids in my neighborhood.
House File 1745.
We're trying to get the bonding bill. before the committee.
Hormel Institute.
It's been...
Representative Poppe, welcome to our committee.
That's kind of unbelievable.
Do you know much about how the cities get insurance?
Well, yes.
I should.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. It is an honor to come before you with this jobs bill. It also happens to be a bonding project. I do have an amendment that I'd like Representative Murray perhaps to pass just as we get that going for this bill. It's an oral amendment. It's
Oral
not,
amendment?
Mhm.
Would you please explain the amendment?
Representative Murray will do that. It's
Sure, Mr. Chairman. On the bill, the appropriation is for $13,750,000, and we'd like to amend that amount to $13,500,000.
That is correct.
And you'll find that on line 1.6 and 1.14. And I don't know if we'd move to just get this bill in front of us for possible inclusion in the bonding bill, but
Why don't you move your amendment?
I will move the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, everybody understand the amendment?
Yes.
All in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Physical copy of it.
Amendment passes. Now, would you please get into your bill?
Thank you again,
As
Mr.
amended.
Chair and members. As I mentioned, this is a jobs bill that happens to be a bonding request on behalf of the City of Austin's Port Authority. In total, this is a $28 million project expansion of the Hormel Institute, which is located in Austin, Minnesota, which is a research unit of the University of Minnesota and a collaborative cancer research partner with the Mayo Clinic. The amount requested from state bonds is $13,500,000. It will be matched dollar for dollar with non-state sources. And with me today, I have presenters here to speak on behalf of this request. I have someone, a representative from the Hormel Institute, the City of Austin, and the Hormel Foundation. So I'm actually going to ask them to give the presentation, and we will start with Gail Dennison from the Hormel Institute.
Denison, give your name for the record.
Good afternoon.
Now we can hear you or here.
Gail Dennison, with the Hormel Institute. Thank you for having us here today. Thank you, Representative Poppe. First, I'll talk a little bit about who the Hormel Institute is. You hear that name, and all of a sudden you're thinking of a food company. We actually have been in Austin, Minnesota, and we are a research unit of the University of Minnesota and have been so since 1942. In most recent years, because of the increasing epidemic of cancer, our research focuses exclusively on cancer research. We are looking for non-chemo answers and therapies to cancer. And we can say that we're world-renowned because of both our publishing record and the status of the Institute's scientists. Just this week, we found out that once again, our research is published in the world's number one cancer journal called Nature out of Oxford, England. Cancer research is not published in a journal such as this unless it is leading in the industry. We, in 2008, completed an expansion that doubled the number of faculty and staff, adding new jobs to Austin, Minnesota, and tripled the size of the Hormel Institute. That new building is filled, and we now are looking at adding an addition to the existing facility. And so talking about that will be our city administrator, Mr. Jim Herm.
Would you give your name for the record and give
Yes,
us
Mr.
one
Chair.
testimony?
Jim Herm is my name. I'm the Port Authority Director and City Administrator in Austin. And I'm very pleased to be here today because this project is really very important, not just to Austin, but the whole southeast Minnesota. From the Port Authority's perspective, which is our economic development agency, this is a matter of 15 new cancer research labs and 120 new good-paying jobs in Austin. Building this in southeast Minnesota is a partnership between the Institute and the University of Minnesota and Mayo, and it's building that partnership. In order to make this happen, we have to have a strong local partnership too. We have the city, its Port Authority, the foundation. We're finished designing the expansion. We've addressed the public facilities and the parking needs. Land has been actually acquired across the street from the parking, and we're ready to go. Now, I would like to refer you to our report here. These were handed out. I'm sorry, they were just handed out today. If I can get you to go to the very last letter that's in this here report. It's from the Development Corporation of Austin, proposed Hormel Institute expansion. And I just wanted to highlight on the very last page, it's a letter from John Gary, the Executive Director of the Development Corporation of Austin. He talks about a study, a nationwide study conducted annually. The 2010 report shows that bioscience sector jobs overall in Minnesota show a direct employment multiplier effect of 3.87. That is, for every bioscience job created, an additional 2.87 jobs are created to support the various jobs of these new jobs. So if you multiply that out, that's over 450 new jobs for the Austin area. So this is really important to us, to the whole partnership in southeast Minnesota, and we really can't do this on ourselves. So we need the partnership with the state legislature, and that's why we're asking for the $13.5 million to match our local effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm Bonnie Reitz, and I'm here representing the Hormel Foundation. I'm Vice Chair of the Hormel Foundation.
Welcome to our committee.
Pardon me?
Welcome to our committee.
Oh, thank you very much. It's nice to be here. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our project. And I'd like you to think back to the year 1942, and that year the Institute started in a stable on the Hormel property in Austin, Minnesota. And take a look at what we're proposing today. It's pretty exciting. And at that time, lipids were studied, and the antioxidants omega-3 and 6 were actually found in Austin, Minnesota at the Institute. Now today, we have 120 employees, and with our expansion, we hope to double that. We want to thank the governor. We were really pleased when we received a call from him, and he highlighted our project as one of the three that he pointed out bringing in jobs to the state of Minnesota. And we also want to thank Senator Senjum, who came with his committee and highly supports our project. And then I'd like all of you to take a look at Representative Murray today and take a look at that tie he's wearing. By gum, pretty nice. And he's from Albert Lee, Minnesota, which is just down I-90. So Representative Murray, thank you. That's a tie that comes from the Institute, so we appreciate it. We also want to thank Representative Poppe for her strong support. Representative Howes also came to Austin with his committee and visited, so we appreciate it.
Spam Museum.
Yes. Have you been there? Representative Gunther, have you visited the SPAM? All right. I know you've been there, and also, Representative, you've been there, too, to visit Austin, so thank you. And if you were to come to our community today, you would see the support that the community has for the Institute. If you went down 4th Avenue or Main Street, it's filled with pink flags and pink ribbons. We're having a Paint the Rink Pink night this Saturday, bringing in funds for the Institute for cancer research. So with our project, it's not just the Institute, but locally we will match the money that you hopefully will be in the bonding bill this year. And it's a project that involves the City of Austin, the Hormel Institute, University of Minnesota, Mayo Clinic, the Hormel Foundation, and we also hope to welcome the state of Minnesota as one of our partners. So, thank you.
Any questions from the members? Yeah, Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it really has little to do with this $13.5 million. But did you ever get the Blue Gen computer down there?
We have not just the blue gene. In fact, we were I remember you visiting, Representative Mahoney, so thank you. We were first in the state and one of the few in the world to provide our scientists with IBMs. This is another wonderful reflection of the Institute's quality of scientists, because IBM selected the Institute to work with. And we do have our Blue Gene L supercomputer. What this does is speed up drug development. So we're looking at commercializing our discoveries. If you held a calculator, one calculation, the Blue Gene L is 4.7 trillion calculations per second. We have a new one that is close to 40 trillion calculations per second. So now we have two supercomputers. And if Dr. Dong had his way, we'd have a computational biology center and have about 20. So we have big plans to keep growing. So thanks for asking.
Fasten your laptop, isn't it?
Just a little bit faster, my laptop, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I've watched Hormel Institute grow. I've visited it. I think
Yes.
Chair has visited with me a couple of times. If there's an institution or a body that we should support as a state, as a region, for the good work that it does, I mean, if you've ever had a friend that has had to go through chemotherapy and watch the devastation versus having another way of finding a cure for cancer, this is really an institution that is on cutting edge, and I hope that this sails through. If I've got my own bonding projects, but I think this is probably a huge priority and should be for the state and for this committee and,
Thank you,
and the body.
Representative Mahoney. That's wonderfully stated.
Well, thank you. Don't see any more questions. Oh, we got Representative Clark. Your bill's last, remember.
I know. I'll be really quick. Quick question. You caught my attention when you said non-chemo therapies. And yet I heard you just talk about analyzing the chemicals,
Right.
drug chemicals. So which is it, or how?
The
can you explain that?
Institute's expertise is identifying molecules found in foods that have cancer preventive qualities. So we're looking for answers to chemotherapy or replacement for prevention and control of cancer. So, in foods, there's, many of these chemicals have cancer preventive qualities, so we're looking at how to find non-toxic treatments and prevention of cancer. And the Institute is really considered the world leader in identifying these small molecules. Again, I can say that based on our publishing record and, broad area of expertise in studying things like ginger and green onions and green teas, and generally we give out a nice little chocolate. I'll bring that next time. So, dark chocolate.
Representative Clark really liked the word non-toxic.
I do. And also non-chemo. As a cancer survivor, it's really important to me to know some other ways. But I just, I'm curious. I mean, one of the things that we often get for chemical, or for cancer treatment is chemically based treatment, which is often funded by the drug companies.
Right.
And so I was presuming drug companies are not going to play a major role in your funding?
Correct. Right. We're all of our research is funded through National Institutes of Health grants and or Department of Defense grants. So that's where the research comes from, and then the commercialization. We have units within the University of Minnesota and Mayo Clinic to be ready for commercializing.
And then just one final question. So how about the big food companies, big food industry, since you're dealing with food? Is that part of your funding stream?
Well, the Hormel Foundation is part of our funding stream, and we do have a collaboration with the R&D branch of Hormel Foods, that if there is a discovery that they would be able to look at, a food-based functional food or medical food. So we do have that, partnership in place.
Thank you.
But the key answer is trying to, find an answer to chemotherapy, as you,
Great, thank you.
understand. It's a good venture.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't have a question, but maybe just a comment. I've had the opportunity to go over and visit with my friends in Austin and learn a lot more about the Institute this year, and this is a great project for a number of reasons. But the best reason that I like is in the second paragraph of that letter that states we will be creating 125 new jobs at $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Watching jobs leaving southern Minnesota and watching the jobs that we're replacing with at $12 to $15 an hour, this is huge. And so this is why I really like this project. So thanks for bringing this in today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no one else that wants to ask a question, we will lay this House File 1745 over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bonding bill or capital investment bill, and Representative Howes will give it this due consideration.
Thank you.
With that, we have House File 1698, Representative Anzelc. I mean, he lives about as far north as you can go.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for listening to this proposal. Located in Itasca County along the western Mesabi Iron Range and the Iron Ore Formation are three mining communities. The municipality of Calumet, the municipality of Marble, and the township of Greenway, whose population in aggregate totals somewhere between 12 and 1,400. And these three local units of government happen to have three volunteer fire departments with 3 buildings, old and dilapidated, 3 sets of equipment, very, very old, 3 groups of firefighters, 3 fire relief pensions, and this proposal would consolidate those 3 regional entities or 3 local unit entities into one public regional fire protection entity. This is a proposal that has been considered for many, many years. This is a proposal that would have local matching funds available through local levies, through the creation of the local entity, and potentially through the use of taconite production dollars, which of course are actually property taxes. So the proposal or the request is for $1,200,000. This would, the Itasca County Board of Commissioners would be the fiscal entity for pre-design, design, construct, and furnishing this new structure and this new department. This is a redesign effort. It's good for local government. It's, I know of no local citizens who object to this in concept, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions? Representative Stensrud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier, we had another fire station, and they had some matching funds that were coming from non-state sources. I was just curious if there's any provision for that with this proposal.
Representative Anzelc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. Yes, there is contemplated local matching funds through the local levy and or taconite production tax dollars as well.
Stensrud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is contemplated matching funds? That sounds, it's something you're just working on or that's been discussed. What is the total scope of the project? So if this is 1.2, there'll be additional costs beyond that, likely? Is that?
Mr. Chair and Representative, the total scope of the project is $1.2 million. Obviously, we hope for $1.2 million, but we're prepared for getting less than $1.2 million, and in that case, local matching funds would backfill the additional need.
Representative House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Anzelc, how much less are you anticipating?
Representative
Mr. Chair, and to my good friend, my good friend and colleague and compatriot, I'm at your mercy here, and I know that you will evaluate this proposal and consider it kindly. So.
Mr. Chairman, as long as we have a one more minute for enjoyment.
We got Representative Clark's bill yet,
What would the
too.
interest be on $80 million in the bank that they still have per year? Could we use the interest?
Oh, no, this is not a minute, let me tell you.
Representative Anzelc.
Mr. Chair, I think I'd like to defer to a member of the committee, Representative Dill, to answer that question.
Representative Dill, we'd love to hear the answer.
Not much.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll lay this over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bonding bill, which will go to Representative House Committee.
Thank you very much.
And with that, Representative Clark, we made it. Representative Clark moves House File 1257 for possible inclusion in our omnibus capital investment bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd sure like to do that. And I have one witness with me today, and some of you are probably familiar with the whole issue of land trust. But what this bill does would authorize the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to sell $5 million in nonprofit housing bonds to help community land trust acquire approximately, we think, about 200 properties. Many of these are either foreclosed or in risk of being foreclosed, and this would be statewide. These nonprofit housing bonds were issued during the Poppe administration, and so this is that had a purpose of dealing with supportive housing programs, and this again is for land trusts targeted in that way. And these land trust housing developments, they leverage a lot of additional public and private funds, and I think we'll be hearing some testimony on that. Basically, the land trust, the land stays with the property, and the homeowner owns the home on top of it. And I think I'll just stop there for the moment and just take some testimony from Teresa Vanderbent.
Welcome to our committee. Would you give your name for the record, Teresa?
Sure. For the record, my name is Teresa Vanderbent. I am the co-chair of the Minnesota Community Land Trust Coalition and the executive director of Two Rivers Community Land Trust. We serve Anoka and Washington counties in my organization. I am here today to let you know that Community Land Trusts have 10 members in our group. They have 820 units. We range in area from Duluth, Rochester, southern Minnesota, central Minnesota, and then the Twin Cities metro area. The bonding bill in front of you would allow us to purchase land underneath homes as a capital investment, and it would allow us to use that to write down the price of housing to make it affordable for our area's workforce. We see it as a prudent use of resources, supporting affordable home ownership, and really an effective tool to mitigate foreclosure, to support our workforce, and to support development along transit corridors, really an economic development tool. In addition, just so that you know, of the 820 community land trust homeowners in Minnesota, their incomes range from about $33,000 to about $50,000, and that's really what's needed for a working homeowner to be able to afford a home. Again, our homeowners live in, or our organizations have houses in Duluth, Rochester, Slayton, Twin Cities Metro, St. Cloud. We have 200 homes in northern Minnesota, about over 200 homes in southern Minnesota, and over 300 in the metro area. One thing to know about this initial investment, by putting $5 million in approximately 200 homes over the 20-year yield of the bond, you will actually see about approximately 800 homeowners having the advantage of these houses. And so I thought that that would be pertinent to the discussion today.
How many people?
Representative House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Clark, on page 3, maybe of the very first line, each July 15th beginning in 2011, should we maybe make that 2012?
All right. You're correct. Thank you for that correction.
I would offer that as an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Page 3, yeah. Representative Clark, do you want to change the co-author by Representative Hayden to authored by Representative Clark?
Oh, yes, that's correct. He was the first author, and now he is in the Senate, so where he is also carrying this bill forward, I believe. So, thank you for that correction, too.
With that, Representative Swedinski, got a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Clark, so if we bond state dollars for the property beneath the homes, how does that affect local property taxes within those municipalities? Do you guys pay as a nonprofit the property taxes, or?
The property taxes, full property taxes, land and home are paid by the homeowners at market rate.
Okay, so even though they don't necessarily own the property, they pay the market rate tax.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? With that, we will lay House File 1257 over for possible inclusion in our capital investment, and the capital, and not ours, the capital investment bill. And we made it in time. Thank you for your speed, members, and we are adjourning.